I learned anything from this past election, it's that people care and are deeply concerned about their pockets, their wallets, and the economy. And so, if you are one of those people who feel like it's really tough to make it no matter how hard you work, this video is for you. I am Bernadette Joy, your millionaire mentor. And in November 2016, I hit my first financial milestone that was really significant towards financial freedom. I paid off $72,000 of debt in less than a year. It also happened to be the first time that Trump was elected into office. And 8 years later, we are back in the same situation, seeing that he will come into another term, but my financial situation has changed dramatically in those 8 years. And so I am here to share with you the 5 secrets that have helped me become a millionaire since that time, and how you can make sure that you are in the best financial shape possible, regardless of who is in office. So stay tuned and stick around. This is a 2-part video. So this is part 1 of this 5 secrets. And I would love to hear in the comments below, what is one thing that you took away from this? And if you like this content, please check us out at crushyourmoneygoals.com.
Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining on this hump day. I'm very, very honored that you're here because you could be anywhere else right now, and yet you're here in a money class. So you must be a little nerdy, and I love being with fellow nerds. So thank you for spending your time with me. And so I'm going to ask, for the next hour, in a world that tells us that we must multitask to be successful, I'm going to ask you to not do that and commit for the next hour to learn the tips that I'm going to share with you that is literally worth $1 million. You know how I know it's worth $1 million? Because what I'm going to share with you is how I started my journey to pay off that $300,000 of debt and become a debt-free millionaire. And I'm turning 39 this month in February. So there's only 3 things that I'm going to ask you to do in exchange for this valuable class today. Number 1 is to shut off everything else. Grab a piece of paper and a pen, because physically writing will actually help you remember this stuff more. Don't just keep it in your head and say, okay, that was great, I'm going to remember it. You won't. And then number 2 is money can be a very sensitive topic for people. And so I'm going to ask if you can withhold any judgment and any criticism for the comments that we're going to have in the chat, because I will be asking for lots of participation in the chat. I want you to withhold any judgment of yourself, and specifically for the next hour. You might hear some things and you're going to say to yourself, oh my gosh, I should have done that. I should know better. I should be able to do these things, but I haven't done them. I'm so bad. I'm going to ask you for 1 hour to give yourself some grace.
Ta-da! If you like this content, please go ahead and check out my latest project. It's the Crush Your Money Goals book, and it will be available for purchase December, but now you can get it for pre-order, and you can learn the 25 money habits that will help you save, invest, and plan for financial freedom the same way that I did and was able to retire by 40. Check it out at crushyourmoneygoals.com.
And then step 3. If you find something that is going to be valuable for you, I want you to take action immediately after class. There's going to be plenty of things that I'm going to talk to you about today that is doable, not just theoretical, but actually practical, tangible things. And I'm going to ask you to commit to taking at least 1 action immediately after the class by end of day, 12 o'clock midnight, your time today. So if you can commit to that, can I get a yes in the chat? And if you want to be extra excited, like heck yeah, or woohoo, however you want to say yes to me, let me make sure that you are paying attention and that you're committed to that. Can I get a yes? Absolutely. I like it. We had CC, yes, with many exclamation points. Awesome. I love it. I can already tell we're going to have a fun group here. So today I'm going to teach you the 5 dream blockers that you need to stop building. So I want you to keep building dreams, but stop building the things that are blocking them, because you came here because you are a dreamer. There is something that you have on your heart that you want to do in your life, and I want to make sure that we stop blocking those dreams. Then I'm going to give you my 5 practical steps to my 5 practical tips to start your new money plan like a debt-free millionaire, aka me, Bernadette Joy. And then at the end, I'm going to ask you in the chat to let us know and let your new group of money nerd friends, let them know what you're going to hold yourself accountable to. Okay, so let us get right into the 5 dream blockers. Here's where we're going to withhold judgment. Okay, if any of these resonate with you, please let me know in the chat. Like, let me know, like, okay, Bernadette, you caught me, or, oh yeah, that's definitely something that I've struggled with in the past. So dream blocker number 1, have you done this before? You've spread out your money too thin across too many accounts and obligations. You're like, I know I make some money, but it's spread out all over the place. I don't know my username and passwords. I don't even know like if that account still exists, right? Has anyone felt that way? You have money, but it's spread out all over and not very organized. I see Jennifer said yes, right? I see a few others of you said guilty, right? All the time, right? That's okay. We're going to talk about how we can start getting better at that. What about dream blocker number 2? This one's going to punch you in the gut a little bit. You treat money as scarce and you treat time as unlimited. So what do I mean by that? Maybe you grew up in a household that kept saying, we can't afford this. We don't have the money for this, right? Or you're telling yourself, I can't afford this. I don't have the money for this, right? But then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work harder. That will solve my problem. Instead of trying to figure out how to make my money work for me, you know what the answer is? Work harder. Because I have all the time in the world to give away. I'm going to say I am personally guilty of this. As you heard earlier, I'm the 8th of 9 kids. My dad was a very hard worker, and he instilled to us that you just put in the time. You just put in the time. But all of us have time that is limited. The truth is, money is not scarce. Money is everywhere. If money were really scarce, there would be no such thing as a billionaire, right? But that's a really hard concept, especially for those of us who grew up in households where money was indeed scarce, right? Maybe for us individually or for our families. But a big dream blocker is that if you continue to treat money as scarce, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So let's talk about dream number 3. You aren't crystal clear about your worth. Let me say that again. This can block a lot of your dreams because if you are not crystal clear about your worth, then you become susceptible to generic, unhelpful advice. So let me explain this to you. How many of you have heard financial advice before, and then you heard a conflicting thing? You're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do now. Because one person's saying one thing and the other person's saying the other thing, and now I'm confused, right? The reason I say this is because personal finance, and I'm sure you've heard this before. I'm not the first person to say this. Personal finance is truly personal. And in order for you to be able to put money towards your dreams, you need to understand what your net worth is. A clear picture of where all your stuff is right now, so that when you hear advice, you know how best to apply it. So a common example I give to people is, it would sound kind of silly if I went to a doctor and said, I have a cough, like prescribe me medicine. And I told them nothing else, right? So what if, right? What if instead I went to the doctor and said, okay, well, here is what I was doing yesterday. Here how long it's been happening for. Here are the chronic conditions that I have. Here are the things that, have affected my family before. Here's the amount of stress that I'm under. Then they might be able to give me a better diagnosis of what my issue is. And it might not even be the cough that's the problem, right? Finance is the same way. There are so many factors that will go into your financial plan, and especially if you're going after a dream, but we need to start off with knowing where we are at this moment in time so we know where we want to go. So let's talk about dream blocker number 4. And a lot of people are doing this without even realizing it. You're not playing to win, you're playing to not lose. I'll say it again because it might not click the first time. You're not playing to win, you're playing to not lose. Anyone has done this before? So let me give you some examples. You have cash, but you're afraid to pay off the debt because you don't want to get rid of the cash that's in your bank account doing nothing. Or you know you need to be investing, but you're afraid to invest because you're afraid to lose money. Or you don't negotiate your pay, even though you know you're underpaid, because you're afraid of what your boss will think. Woo! Deanna and Michelle and Nikki, right? And Steve, right? Want to have a liquid nest egg in savings, right? Here's the challenge, right? I teach financial independence, which is very different from financial literacy. And the differentiation I make is that financial literacy is learning how to play the game at money, but financial independence is winning the game of money. And truth be told, money is really a lot like a game. There are rules. There are people who are better at it than others. It takes practice. It takes skills training, right? But if you are trying to win the game at money, you are going to have to play to win rather than having the fear of always losing, right? So let me ask you this. This is the last dream blocker, and let me know if you're feeling this right now, even today. You fall prey to decision fatigue. You might have quality decisions that are not as good as you know that they could be. Maybe you're making some irrational trade-offs. Maybe you're making some decisions that you're like, I know this is not a good decision, but I'm gonna do it anyway, right? Or you feel like you're keeping a sustained emotional load. Right? How many of you are feeling overwhelmed just to make a choice? So I'll give you a prime example. Last week, my husband asked me what I wanted for dinner, and I almost flipped out, right? Because the average adult makes 35,000 decisions a day, 200 of which are just about food. Okay? So I say that to you because some of you are beating yourselves up because you keep saying, I am bad with money. I make bad choices. I don't know what I'm doing. But the truth is, you're actually really tired. You're not bad with money. You are fatigued and you have too many choices to make. So you don't need to unmute yourself, but I want you to say this out loud right now. Okay. And I get it. If you're at work right now, you can whisper it to at your desk, right? But I want you to repeat after me. And then in the chat, if you want to repeat it after me, I am not bad with money. Like actually say this out loud. 1, 2, 3. I am not bad with money. How many of you have said that this is the first time you're ever saying this? How many of you have said that the opposite so many times? I'm so bad with money. I'm so bad with money. I love it. Jennifer flipped it. I am great with money. Alex, thank you for being honest here. I can't say it. I can't say it. Right? But one of the biggest tips I'm going to give you today that's very simple. You need to start saying this to yourself and say it often and say it out loud until you do believe it. But the good news is I'm going to give you some practical tips so that you can actually believe it and not just say it. So right now, I want you to take 2 minutes. What 3 dream words best describe how you want to feel about money in 2024? And I would love if you shared in the chat. What are the first 3 words that come to your mind when you say, this is how I want to feel about money in 2024? Let me see here. Relaxed, happy, secure. Thank you, Brianna. Kathy, secure, enjoyable, plentiful. Kristen, confident, stable, excited. Ooh, Chelsea said freedom, safe, abundance. Empowered, confident, generous. Oh my gosh, I love this group so much. So do me a favor, everyone right now, take a deep breath. Literally, take a deep breath with me. Money doesn't have to be hard. Money can be simple if we let it be. Money can be with ease, with empowerment, right? With satisfaction. So those are some of the words that you guys have said. Money can be joyful. Money can be grounded, right? And so let me ask in the chat, what's one win you've had in your money goals? Even if it's a small win, there's no win that's too small. What's something that you've won in money recently and you haven't given yourself credit for? So maybe you paid off a credit card recently. Maybe you didn't buy that pair of shoes even though you really wanted it. Maybe you put extra money towards your retirement. Maybe you got a bonus. Oh my gosh, what a bunch of amazing, paid off a debt, set up auto pay, extra money into the mortgage. I checked on my credit cards and blocked and made a payment. All right. We're going to have to save this chat because this chat is awesome. Felix retired, right? Look at all of the things that you've already accomplished. No one here is a beginner. You've already done some amazing things. So how do we keep the ball rolling? Now, I want you to think, what's the next thing? What's the next goal you are working on in 2024? Let me hear that in the chat. What is the next goal you're working on in 2024? I want you to get specific. Someone wants to buy a home. Want to save enough money to pay for 2 weddings. That's a good one. I want to pay off all my credit cards. I want to pay off my car. I want to find a good tenant. I want to confidently retire. Oh my gosh, I love this group so much. I want you to keep that particular goal in mind as we go through the next 5 steps and see how these steps might apply to you. Okay? Think of that goal specifically, because if you just think I just want to be good with money, this is not going to apply as well, right? So let's go into the 5 steps. So the reason my company is called Crush Your Money Goals, and the reason why this class is called Crush Your Money Goals is because it is the 5 steps that I use to start my new money plan to become a debt-free millionaire, and it spells out the word crush. So it'll be easy to remember, C-R-U-S-H. So I want you to take your piece of paper and write down C-R-U-S-H down the line so you can remember. All right? Give me a yes in the chat if you wrote down C-R-U-S-H. Let me make sure we're alive here. Okay, good. All right, step 1, curate your accounts. C is for curate your accounts. Write that down. Curate. Simply put, the word means to take charge and to organize. Take charge of and organize. Now let's get honest with ourselves. How many of us feel like we are 100% in control of all of our money accounts? Or are the money accounts controlling us? For example, are you letting the bank dictate when you're going to pay off your credit card? Or are you saying, I know exactly when it's going to get paid, and I am confident it's going to happen, and I'm going to make sure I even pay it early, right? The challenge here, it is really hard to do that if we don't have a curated collection of accounts. And the number one thing that I work with all of my students on first is to get all of their accounts, look where they are, get the usernames and passwords, and figure out whether or not we need them all. I worked with a student yesterday who had 12 different bank accounts. 12. She doesn't have kids, doesn't have a husband, or any other people. It is just her who had 12 accounts. And I said, why? And no one has ever asked for that before. And her homework assignment, and she's already closed 3 of them, was to get it down to 6. Now, really, I wanted to get to even more, but we're working incrementally. So here is your first assignment today. Do you have all of your accounts gathered up in one place that you could see it all in one view? And then are all of those accounts mutually exclusive? In the chat, I would love to hear who has heard the term mutually exclusive? What does that mean if you haven't heard that before? Mutually exclusive. All of the accounts must be mutually exclusive. And Ronnie asked, all eggs in one basket? That's not what I mean. I mean getting all of the accounts in one view. So for example, I use a tool called Monarch Money. And Monarch Money is a tool where you can upload all of your accounts from all the different banks. And so that when I go to Monarch Money, I see all of my accounts in one view and I can see, oh, okay, I have 4 bank accounts. And I know exactly how much is in each of them instead of having to look up every single account individually. So I used to use Mint, but now Credit Karma took over, and I personally have not used Credit Karma because it just pushes a lot of credit card ads right now. So I use Monarch Money now. Another one you can use is Empower. A lot of your banks may already have a net worth tracking tool. So one of the goals for you today is to say, if I don't have a particular place where I have all of that in one view, that is my first assignment. So here is where I actually show you. I have 4 cash accounts. I have 2 debt accounts. They're both just credit cards. One is my business card, and then one is my personal card. I have 13 different investment accounts, and then I have 1 property right now, which is just my car because I sold all of my property, right? So if you notice the emphasis, where do you think, based off of my picture here, where do you think I'm spending most of my energy? Take a guess. And that's right. Anika said investments. Investments, because I don't have any debt. I only have 4 cash accounts. I only have my car and it's paid off in full. And so the vast majority of decisions I'm making is around my investments. Now, I'm not saying that you have to have 13 investment accounts. The reason, going back to why I asked, what are your accounts mutually exclusive, is you have to ask yourself, do I have multiple accounts that are doing the same thing? And why do I need multiple accounts? Right? So as another example, if you have 401ks, right, from your employer, or you have IRAs and you have multiple IRAs, the question would be, can you move them over, consolidate them, or roll them over so that you have one less account to look at? So this is really to help you not only get organized, but to remove some of the decision fatigue so that you're not always having to keep track of so many different items, but then also you can make better decisions because you know where all your stuff is. Great question. Can Monarch be used for accounts in multiple countries? It's mostly American based, but they do have other versions for other countries. Another tool that I use for my clients who are not in the US is Pocketsmith. So the average human has 4 credit cards, 5 bank accounts, and at least 20 recurring bills each month. It is no wonder you are exhausted, because who can keep track of 29 at least different things every single month? Sarah said, ooh, this slide is so relatable, right? So here is another tip I'm going to give you today. In 2024, I want you to start thinking about how to make your money make dream money, since we're all dreamers here. So I want you to add up all your cash accounts. So your checking accounts, your savings accounts, your certificates of deposit, anything that's a liquid cash account. I want you to just find out how much money you have in liquid cash. Then I want you to ask yourself, do I have a dream account? Do I have at least one account that is dedicated towards putting money towards a dream of mine? So that dream might be going on a vacation with my family. That dream might be starting a business someday. That dream might be paying off my house early. Some of you said, I want to buy a house. Do you have at least one account? And is it named that dream? That when every time you go look at that account, you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I have that dream. I have an account right now that says buy a new home in 2025 in cash. It is literally named that in there. Someone asked about free resources. I'm going to give you a guide with all of the resources that I recommend at the end of the presentation. So then the next thing I want you to do is I want you to consider, do you have at least a high yield savings account? here is the good and bad news in 2024. The good news is that if you have any extra cash, now is the time that you can make pretty decent money on free interest, essentially, without doing any work. And my favorite account of all the cash accounts is the high yield savings account, where right now, most of them are giving you at least 4 to 5%, right? So if you have a dream account, is it a high yield interest bearing account where you can let your dream grow more money by you not doing anything? And then if you have any accounts that you are not using that can be consolidated, that you've just been hanging on to because you just haven't had the time, this is the day that you say, all right, time to close down the accounts that are not serving a specific purpose. Okay. So let's talk about step number 2. And then do me a favor, y'all. If you have questions, hold on to those questions and then keep them towards the end, because I will not be able to remember all the questions throughout the presentation. So for those of you who have the questions, just if you can do me a favor and repeat them again at the end, then I'll try to answer as many of those as possible. Okay. So step 2 is reverse into independence. Reverse into independence. Reverse into independence. How much money do you think you need to pursue your dreams without fear? So I'd love to hear in the chat. Have you ever thought about this? How much money would I need to have to feel like I could pursue my dreams and I wouldn't be worried about going homeless? What's a number that comes in your head? And there's no judgments. There's no right or wrong answer here. So someone said $150,000 cash. Anika said 1 year's salary, 100,000, a paid off house. I love that. 1 million. Okay, good, right? Here's where I start people off, and it's going to feel overwhelming. Okay. You're going to feel overwhelmed. I'm just giving you a heads up. That's why I asked you to take a deep breath. There is an actual dollar amount that can help you figure out how much money you would need to have saved up such that you would not run out of money, right? And it's going to be a big number for a lot of people. So it's called the 4% rule. It's a financial planning rule that actually if any of you have investments, a lot of what the models are based off of is this rule. Now, there's an entire class that I teach about this. So the Cliff Notes version of this is that essentially, if you were to save up what we call your financial independence number, and you were to put it into investments that were replenishing themselves every year, right? Because they're growing instead of just being stagnant like in a regular checking account. And you were to withdraw 4% every year, you could theoretically not run out of money. So before your critical brain goes, well, that's, what about inflation and what about interest rates? And it's so complicated and what investments? That's not the purpose of today's exercise. The purpose of today's exercise is to say, where can we start? And start thinking differently, right? So let's do an estimate right now. This is a quick and dirty estimate that we're going to do. So this is why you need your pen and paper, and you might need your phone. I want you to think about the 5 expenses that you spent in January. Okay. And you don't need to have the exact numbers, or just ballpark it, because we'll have a rough idea. And then one of your homework assignments might be to go back and get a more clear estimate. So the 5 main expenses is what you paid for your home, so your rent or your mortgage, about how much you paid for your utilities, about how much you paid for food in January. And again, reserve the self-criticism. I don't, no time for judging ourselves about how much we ate out or how much McDonald's we ate or whatever, right? How much you spent on transportation. So it could be your car payment, your insurance, your gas. If you live in a major metropolitan area, maybe it's the card for the subway. And then how much you spent on health expenses. And when I call health expenses, just for simplicity purposes, just ballpark, how much do you spend on, the cleaning supplies for your house, like toilet paper, shampoo, like anything that keeps your house healthy. Okay. When you have added that amount, those 5 expenses, give me a yes in the chat. You should get like a number, right? Okay. Ooh, look at you guys. Yes. Okay. Then next step, I want you to take that number and multiply it by 12 because that's how much you would spend in a year. For the purposes of this exercise, we're not going to include health insurance because that's like an entire different discussion. But yes, you're right. It is very high. Okay. Just for the purpose of the discussion. Okay. So now you've multiplied by 12. Give me a yup in the chat if you multiply by 12. Okay. So that's about how much you would need for very basic living. Right? So no one's balling out, no one's like on a yacht, but you have a house. I mean, you have a place to live, you have food, no one's going hungry, right? In this scenario. Now I want you, this is where we're going to get some heart palpitations. I want you to multiply that number by 25. Multiply the number by 25. So in my example, if your 5 expenses cost about $4,000 a month, it would be $48,000 a year, which would be $1.2 million. Now, here is where I asked in the beginning to suspend criticism and self-judgment. I want you to ask yourself, well, how do I feel about this number? How do I feel about this number? Now, this is the juncture by which the people who are dreamers start to separate from the people who are pessimists. Okay? Right? This number represents that if you were to get this amount and put it into investments, because it's growing, you could theoretically not run out of money.